by still Chairman Oberstar, Senator Rockefeller, Senator Dorgan, saying they would hope to get a bill passed still this Congress. So not quite over yet, but if we do end up going into next year, I think the good news is that we have built a pretty strong base in Congress. Over the course of the last year and a half, we've seen general aviation caucuses in the House and Senate grow to be some of the largest caucuses of any. So we have a strong base. We lost a number of people because of the retirements, because of the election cycle, but we have some new friends coming in. And so we think we're going to have a strong base on which to build, and we think that, we're going to have an opportunity to remake our case on the importance of general aviation to our country, to our communities, to companies. And we think we've got message points that we know resonate because we've used them on focus groups in Capitol Hill before, and the answer is they've signed up and said, I'll be part of the General Aviation Congress, or caucus. So I think that there's a base on which to build. There's a body of knowledge. There's some messages that we know resonate, but it is going to be a different environment. And it'll be one that'll be heavily colored by the financial situation and by the economy. So I think as we try to promote general aviation, move forward on things like NextGen, there will be a backdrop that says, well, what about user fees? What about reducing the general fund contribution? So I expect it to be a very challenging year, a very difficult year, but an opportunity as well. And I think that, that we're going to be able to articulate a very strong case that one of the best ways to enhance the economy is to enhance our transportation infrastructure, to facilitate the meeting of buyers and sellers of commerce, bringing the ebb and flow of commerce to all of the communities across the United States. And this is one issue, public transportation, where there has never been a strong partisan take to it. If you look at the general aviation caucuses, or if you look at the number of states that have signed general aviation proclamations, they break down almost 50-50 between Democrats and Republicans. We are not a partisan issue, and in a partisan environment, which we're going to expect, they may need to find some successes. They may need to find areas where they can agree, and I think that's our opportunity, because people generally agree transportation is good for our economy.
Questions? Yes, sir.
I know we're going to get some common sense in the FAA. We talked about keeping young people into aviation. We've got thousands of airplanes out there that if they were included in flight support aircraft, like a 120, a 140, or a tri-pacer. And the only reason it's keeping them out is just to keep balance. And so we need some common sense in the Also, the TSA needs a little common sense. I live on a residential airport, and I read today that we have to put a 6-foot chain link fence around our airport to keep the terrorists.
I wonder if Rod can relate to that.
The terrorist part, or
no?
You know, it's a good point. You know, we've all had many of us have had the pleasure of meeting. We'll speak about the TSA for a second, about the chain link fence first. John Pistol. Here's a guy who is, first of all, I thought that Ed did a fantastic job of inviting him to NBAA, those of you who heard him speak. Here's the way that we look at it, and I think the associations share the view. This is a marathon, this is not a sprint. So relationships with the regulatory process, as well as the legislative process, have got to take the long-term view. Here's a new guy, John Pistol, good guy, by the way, who is probably not as knowledgeable about aviation, all things aviation, as we would like him to be. That's an opportunity. So Ed and NBA has reached out. He has attended AirVenture. He had a great time, smashing good time. And what he walked away with was a different appreciation for what aviation is all about and the people involved with it. He was obviously moved and impressed by his experience at AirVenture, because during his keynote speech at NBAA, he referenced AirVenture twice by name and third by his experience. is open the door to have a dialogue, to take a high-level key driver in the TSA, bring him up to speed on all things aviation. The small general aviation airport is not likely to be a hotbed for terrorist activity. But the tragedy of some of this self-defense, putting a big fence up around an airport 10 feet tall with razor wire on the top of it, turns that lovely airport into almost a prison yard. Looks like a county prison when you do that. My frustration about that, and our frustration in the industry about that, is it's challenging enough for us to invite and welcome people into aviation. It's hard enough to kind of break in and learn the secret handshake and enter the community. Putting up fences around airports does not help that. So all of us have to take it upon ourselves, and certainly the associations that are sitting in front of you today take it as a key responsibility to build relationships with those key decision makers, help them understand the issues and the opportunities, help them be successful in their goal, and lending the sensibility and the balance to that decision making and policy setting. You got to catch it early. You don't want to be behind the curve on that. A comment about the FAA. We enjoy, and I can speak for the rest of the gentlemen at this table, a very positive relationship with the FAA. Fighting it is not going to win the day. Understanding how to be successful with it is important. So building those relationships, taking the long-term view about what is sensible in defending aviation. And I always say this to people, especially a room full of aviation people. If you're a pilot or if you're in the aviation industry, there are certainly two cards that you want in your wallet. You want an AOPA card in that wallet. You want to be a member that helps fight and protect our right to fly. You want an EAA card in your wallet to make sure that we're bringing new people of all ages into aviation, okay? When we sit down and work with our FAA relationships and the administrators that we deal with, you know what? For the first time in a long time, we have an aviator at the head of the FAA. Administrator Babbitt is very pro-aviation. Now, there's an opportunity for all of us. Very powerful experience we had at GAMA. Pete Bunce had Administrator Babbitt as a featured speaker and a guest. And Administrator Babbitt was very pro-aviation. And I think there was an invitation extended to our industry that said, work with us, give us those good ideas, help us balance that out, and add some sensibility. So for the first time in a long time, I think we've got an opportunity that looks like a moment we should capture and take advantage of for the good of aviation. Good point.
One thing I think we've, second, Martha. Go ahead.
This is a follow-up question that I'd like to direct to Henry, and that is, do you find that many of the airport managers or state officials in your organization are actually in favor of the fences around the airport because they perceive that it makes their job easier?
Thank you, Martha. The answer is an easy no, because fences, as you know, are unbelievably expensive. And we just don't have enough money in the system to fence every airport. And so it makes good sense for all of us to say, wait a minute, as Rod was saying, we don't need a 10-foot. You know, before we had the common sense that we now see at TSA, I was talking to an individual at TSA a couple of years ago about the fencing issue, because you, I'm sure, are familiar with the general aviation guidelines, which are purely voluntary, but most of us at this table had a hand in working on those to keep them as common sense as possible. Well, of course, we did have some federal assistance, and one of our federal assistants wrote 5 pages on fences. And I said, you know, those are the 5 most expensive pages that have ever been written in the history of aviation. I think it's about $50 billion worth of fences. Let's take these out right now. He didn't want to do it, but his boss saw the light. And that was when I was talking to her about, in those days I used to ride the Metro in Washington from downtown Washington, where I lived, to where our office used to be in Silver Spring, Maryland. And there are a lot of old warehouses along the train, and when the Metro goes above ground, you see that there is a 10-foot chain link fence topped with razor wire, and the back walls facing the Metro are all painted by graffiti artists. So if those fences and that razor wire can't stop an 18-year-old with a spray can, it ain't going to stop Obama. Osama.
You know, if for about the last 24 months, I think we've seen that there's been a philosophy inside the Beltway that more government is better. And certainly now we've got, you know, virtual strip search scanners, and we've got the grope and poke alternatives. The question is then, what about us? Where are we now with LASP? That's the Large Aircraft Security Program, introduced a couple of years that would have imposed airline-like security measures on any aircraft over 12,500 pounds. Where are we with that now?
Well, the Large Aircraft Security Program was first published for public notice in early November of 2008. It originally had a 60-day comment period. We got that extended to 120 days, and I think we used that time very well because we as a community asked for public meetings, and the TSA held 5 of them across the United States. We went out and suggested that people ought to comment to the docket. We generated over 7,000 comments to the docket, an overwhelming amount. And I think that the exciting thing is that this was a opportunity where our community stood up and actively participated in the process, and the results seem to be very real and very clear. The TSA decided that they were going to make significant changes in the LASP. Now, we don't know what those changes are ultimately going to look like, but we do know because we heard the TSA testify in the House of Representatives that they are making major changes in all of the areas where we suggested they flat out got it wrong. So the expectation is that they will come forward with a new proposal, and I think that in itself is significant. They're not going to come out with a rule. They're not going to say, we heard what you said, and so here's what you get. They're going to come out with another proposal, and if they get it wrong again, we'll have another opportunity to participate in the process. We had expected that proposal to be out right about this time. In fact, John Pistol, when he spoke at the NBAA convention, said, I thought I might be here with a new proposal, but I'm not ready yet. He suggested it might be this spring. But I think we'll have an opportunity at that point to see where they are and have an opportunity to continue this dialogue and make sure that they get this right. Because I think the reality is that our community is largely secure, but we can always do better. Whatever it is, we can do better. And it's not just in general aviation, it's in every walk of life. You're never perfect, and we can always get better. But we also ought to be, as a government and as a country, be finding ways that we facilitate mobility. Because mobility is a great part of who we are and is a great part of our economy. So how we enhance security and facilitate mobility is something that I think we can constantly improve on. And I'm anxious to see where we are in the process, to see where the proposal is. And my expectation would be it's going to need to be modified, it's going to need to be tweaked. But ultimately, I think that we as a community have shown that we want to be a secure community. I recall right after 9/11, all of our groups met together and we brought in some security people and we said, we don't really know how secure we are. Can you help us? And what we heard was, you know, you've got a lot you can build upon, because a general aviation community is a small community with really nosy neighbors. You guys speak your own lingo. You're not afraid to walk up to somebody and say, tell me about your plane. Where'd you get it? How long you been flying? You interface with the government. You get pilot licenses. You get medical checks. You talk to controllers. You're a pretty good community in terms of knowing who's in the community and how you operate. But there are ways you can build on it. And I think what we've been trying to do is find ways that we can build on our inherent strengths, continually harden our community against attack, but also facilitate the mobility that makes general aviation successful.
I think we can